Welcome, everybody, to the SoulFull Sessions live. And today we're talking about curiosity. So, for those of you that are new, the soulful way is where values are lived. And so, we've spent a huge portion of our lives and careers working with this idea of values and how they align to life. And I see Katrina joining us this morning. Good morning, beautiful souls. Oh, love that. Welcome, everybody, whether you're watching this live or you're on the recording. Just congratulations for taking some time out of a very busy life, because we all live them, to just take a moment to think about different types of values and how they ignite, reignite, connect you to your life and what really truly matters. So at the Soulful Way, we pick a theme every month, and June is curiosity. And it's been a really, really fun one because Todd and I were just talking before we popped on the call. We don't realize that as we do this for you, it becomes equally as important for us in how we are approaching our lives, how we keep these things that matter top of mind, and how we hardly know at the beginning of a month how a particular theme or an idea is going to weave its way into our own learning, our own exploring, our own creating in the world. And so we're just thrilled to have you join us and to just be able to do this in community, because in a very busy world, as well as a very disconnected world, sometimes it's really incredible to come together about these simple yet profound things. And so, before we get started, I'm Jennifer Maki of the Soulful Way and Mad Hero Productions. We also have a production company and a publishing company that we're very privileged to work with amazing storytellers. And I'm a co-owner. And then this is my better half. I'll let you introduce yourself, Todd.
I'm Todd Maki. Nice to meet everybody and nice to see new people on.
And we've just been doing this for about 5 months. We've worked together for years and years, but we've had a publishing company for about a year and a half now. And Todd and I have always worked together in different capacities, but it's been incredible to come together and do these talks and just give you little touch points every single week for you to just weave your way in one of the themes that we're talking about. And so today in Curiosity, as I love to do before we start, because we've all had busy days or busy mornings, I just take a moment to just center ourselves. And so I'll just ask you to just set everything aside and invite you to just either close your eyes or just pick a soft spot on the ground near you to just take a moment for yourself. Deep breaths in through your nose and just releasing, relaxing, and just breathing out and letting go. Letting go of your thoughts and your curious week and all the happenings and unfoldings, and just coming into the present moment. And just honoring all the things that happened this week for you, curious and otherwise, how you've been growing, appreciating, even working through challenges, and just honoring all that, and then coming into this moment to just be present and curious in new ways. And because today is about curiosity in relationship, I want you to just imagine someone in your mind. Maybe that's a parent or a child or a coworker or a stranger that you met, and just hold them in your mind, being curious about the fact that while you may know them or want to know them, there's lots to be discovered. And just hold them in that curious space of wonder. And then picture yourself in the mirror or in your mind's eye, and just see yourself anew. Promise to open your mind a little and be a little bit more curious about yourself, not assuming anything, being open to what might come next. And then when you're ready, wiggle your toes and your fingers. And when you're ready, just come back into the room and open your eyes. Whew, always feels so lovely to just give ourselves some space. Todd and I were listening to Smartless this week, one of our favorite podcasts. And a few of the beautiful folks that were presenting were talking about this idea of space. And they were interviewing Rachel Maddow, she's really phenomenal, brilliant speaker, writer, journalist. And she takes this pause in between things, and they were giving her accolades for that and saying how unusual that is in the world. And so as we kind of explore curiosity, making sure we take pauses for ourselves, for the people around us in this idea and being curious. And that makes way and space for that. So, the very first thing I just want to talk about is this phrase that was actually attached to our poster for this week. And we're mixing it up a bit. We kind of did a consistent branding poster for a while about us, the way that we present. And it's a picture of Todd and I, and it's the subject for this week. And then we felt curious and we thought we need to mix it up. And isn't that true in our lives that we can become rote and do things the way we've always done them? And then if we're going to be creative and we're going to be curious, then we need to bust out in new ways. And so every time I'm speaking or Todd's speaking, I want to just think about how this relates to your own life and how you can mix things up a bit or whatever topic or subject we're talking about. I just really, I want you to just think about how this relates to you. This is all about you today. I just want to pop in, sweet Jenny. I cannot speak or appear on. Oh, that's beautiful. That's all good. Leah's here. She's one of our beautiful Soulful Collective members, and I think we've got a few more on here. We'll be checking into the chat. I think we've got new folks. Sue Ann's here. Welcome. That's great. She's another member, and it's Jocelyn from Thunder Bay. It is her. I'm so excited. Jocelyn and I have a curious history of A Course in Miracles from years and years ago. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you here, honey. So, what was on our poster was tell me more. And if you just think about that statement for a moment, tell me more, 4 simple words, but how that opens people up to a new feeling, a curiosity within yourself. I don't know about you. And as Sarah Newton says, hi from Spain. Oh, I love it. I walked El Camino a couple of years ago. Just wonderful to have you here. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for connecting, everybody. Really appreciate the chat. Makes us feel like we're more connected to everyone. So, this idea of tell me more is just such a fascinating phrase if you think about it. I know for me, I've had a new friend that's developed. She couldn't be here actually today. She's doing a beautiful march in England today for some folks that were killed in a fire a number of years ago. It's a march that they do every month, actually, and every year to commemorate those people. And she is such a beautiful advocate for what's important in this world. And she has taught me a whole new level of curiosity. And lots of people do, but we've just gotten to know each other in about the last 6 or 8 months. And the way that she asks questions just it sets me on fire in a new way. And when we think about that, the people that really that ask us questions of ourselves, that are curious, that really genuinely want to know more about us, there's something amazing that happens because we just open up in new ways. And if we don't, and people make assumptions, which is the next area we're going to talk about, when we make assumptions, then we kind of don't need to share. And we're going to share some stories today, but this idea of assumption to curiosity, as we deepen our relationships with people, we can assume that we know about how they think about things, we can assume about how they feel about what's happening, or when they make a comment or a statement, we can create that assumption because we feel like we know them. Or we see someone, never want to judge a book by its cover, but we'll see someone and we can assume things about them. And curiosity makes space for wonder, it makes space for newness, and it makes space for real communication. And also that we really are understanding where someone's coming from because we're not afraid to ask the questions and how that brings us alive in new ways. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. The assumptions, as Todd and I were talking about, even in our own relationship of being married for 20 years, assumptions can quietly erode relationships where curiosity renews them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I see that Robes is here. Welcome, peace and love and kindness. I'm just checking into the chat. I'm so glad Dr. Tanis is here now. Tell me more sounds like awe and equals what else? Absolutely. It opens up a whole what is possible when we approach one another with curiosity, right? It just takes us to a whole new level. And I know with my friend Rebecca, all of a sudden she would ask me questions about my life, or she would remember a sentiment that I shared, and then she would ask again and say, "Tell me more about this. I love to hear about that." And as a person who, while I speak for a living, I oftentimes am talking, I'm really kind of draw people out of themselves. And so the conversations I've had, I'm asking a lot of questions. And so is Todd in his work. And so to be able to flip that where someone else is asking those questions of us, it's just been an incredible process in Todd and I being able to chat about how our life is renewed when we take a look at curiosity in this new way. And I want to just pass it over to you, Todd, about what you want to share about what this impression has been of curiosity and what this few weeks has been where we've been deep diving into this.
Well, I think one of the big things it's brought me back to doing things the way I used to when I was younger in my career. I remember just as we were talking a second ago about I used to at one point work running private colleges, and every time a new class would come in, I would come in and do an orientation. And I don't know if you've ever been through an orientation, but they can be the driest things since sliced bread or whatever you want to say. But what I would do is I would spend the first part of the class. There'd be like 10 or 12 students in the new class, and I would
Yeah.
the go around the horn and basically say, okay, everybody pair up with somebody you've never talked to before. Ask them their name. Make sure you can pronounce their name. So work on that if it's a challenging name because you're going to introduce them. Tell them what program you're in and tell them why you joined the program. And so it starts about a 10-minute conversation. They sit and they talk and they smile and they laugh and they try to write things
Yeah.
down. And then I go around the class and one person would introduce the other person. And so the opportunity is for them to connect. But what I added
Right.
on top of that was asking questions of the person who had just been introduced. So they
Yeah.
say, I love cooking, and
Yeah.
that's one of my that's something that that's what I found out in the conversation. So my friend loves cooking, so I said, okay, what do you cook? What do you like to cook?
Yeah.
Have you ever tried this? Have you done this? And you would go do that for every person in the classroom. And what you're doing is you're being curious about what they was said about them. So you're not just listening to it and waiting for that part of the exercise to end.
Yeah.
The two students connected, and I connected with the student that was being introduced, and vice versa. And you go through the whole class, and it really was a warming experience. And by
Yeah.
the time they finished that part of the orientation, they felt like they were part of a group. They felt like they knew each other a little bit, and there's like always like three musicians in the room. There's five people like cooking, and there's three people that love to collect cats, and whatever. But there's a commonality that comes out of those groups. So
Yeah.
um, it brings me back to the fact that I need to maybe ask more questions of people too. And so now that's where I'm going on a little bit, but I'm
No.
playing
Please.
this hockey. It's basically they call it beer league hockey. It's not high level. It's just people show up and they have a beer after the game, and they tend to be two teams, and it's just you come in, you just drop in, you pay, so there's no set teams, but you tend to sit with the same team. Last week I went into the other dressing room and sat with the other team and got dressed with them,
Mhm.
and I ended up sitting talking to this guy he was a really good hockey player. I found out he was a pharmacist and he'd lived all over Alberta and BC, and so you create these connections with people and you feel like you're part of something bigger than just a bunch of guys that get dressed up in a suit of armor and chase a little puck around the ice. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And isn't it funny how it's a little bit easier when we're getting to know new people. So that's what an amazing, first of all, like just what an amazing enriching experience for those students. And we do it in our workshops. Hey Todd, like every at the end last Saturday of every month we have a workshop, and we do actually like a soulful show and tell where people will bring something that they value in their lives and the stories they'll tell, and to learn more about what people are about. And we can sometimes with new people that's easier, but with people that you've known for a long time, sometimes that's a little tougher because you feel like you already know these things about people, right? And so I just want to look at the chat because I see a few flipping by. Melanie, oh, welcome, Melanie. That's great to have you. Noticing Todd is quiet. Okay. So maybe just move a little closer, sweetheart. Yeah.
Okay, I'll speak
Is
up.
anyone okay, that's great.
Is that better?
And then Leah. Oh, we'll let you talk.
Is that better?
Okay, give us some hearts if Todd's sound is okay, sweetheart. Love
I tend to
that.
talk quietly, so I'll just speak up.
Okay, that sounds great. So as I was saying, when it's people that we've known for a while, sometimes that's a little tougher. So I want you to think about this in relation to people that you've known for a while. How can you mix it up? And we were talking because, of course, these subjects they spark a lot of conversation between Todd and I. So we were walking the pier this morning and we were chatting about this idea of curiosity and really the difference. Oh, Rick's here too. Welcome, Rick. Lovely to have you here. So we were talking about how this curiosity kind of plays out. And I was saying, it's interesting how you can know people for a while. And neither Todd and I, well, we both are public speakers. We don't tend to talk about ourselves unless it's in relation to a theme. And so when we've known people through the years, Todd is a quiet soul for sure, by nature. And if you don't ask Todd Mackey questions, he'll just talk about you the whole time. So I love it when people kind of dig in and our boys will ask, their dad questions about himself because otherwise Todd may not. Whereas I will weave stories of myself, into things that I'm talking about. I had a friend though that I had known for known her for about 10, 15 years at that point. But we had really kind of been in quite, intense relationship for about I was living with her at that time and kind of staying at her place while I was taking care of my mom while she was going through some rehab. And I was staying with her because I was living in California. I'd come home to Canada. And so we were talking over dinner one time. And at the time, I was kind of moving into this new job. And so she said, "So tell me, like, what do you do? What do you do?" And I'd known her for all these years. And so I just went in to talk about the communications and I was working like with Easter seals at the time and I was explaining it to her. And she looked at me and she said, "How in the world that I have known you all this time that I didn't really know what you did?" And I just looked at her and I said, "Well, you didn't ask." And so I want you to think about in your own life where we can assume we know or we think, oh, that person does that, does that job or, they kind of have that life. But where we can ask the questions that kind of deepen it because the more questions she asked, the more interested I was to share and to be able to, open up to her. But I'm not a person that needs to speak if someone doesn't ask that question. So, how many of your friends are like that, or your partner, or your spouse, where they would really love to share a story about their life, but if you don't ask, then they won't always share. So there's a sentence here, and I want to just say, I'm just looking. Todd has the kiss mug too. Yes, we do. We do. Sarah was saying she has them in Spain. I
Oh,
actually,
great.
when I lived in Austria, I went to the museum and I saw the kiss, and it was just floor to ceiling, unbelievable. Talk about a curious painting. Talk about Klimt, the curious painter. And by the way, I'm going to be doing a newsletter in the next couple of weeks. I didn't have a chance to do it this week because we had some stuff going on with our boys, but I'm actually taking a look at art and curiosity in art. So I think Sarah, you might like that because it's really super fun. So I
I
want
just
you to
saw
think about the
Rick.
state. Oh, go
I
ahead,
just
please, please.
Rick. I saw Rick jump on and said aloha, so he must be from Montana, I'm guessing.
Yes, sunny Hawaii, Hawaii, and thank you for connecting. I just love to see some new folks on here. This is so great. We have such a kindred community, and it's been really interesting. We have these touch points every week, and then at the end of the month, I hope a lot of you can make it because it's on Saturday, and it's on Saturday, the 27th, I believe it is, the last Saturday of the month. And so it's a chance for all of us to meet one another and talk and really engage because while Substack is so much about that creative world, and I'm a writer myself and an author, but I really do love the community aspect of things. And so the last Saturday of the month, yeah, we'll just love to have you there if you can make it. So I want you to think about this statement. What if becoming more interested is more important than being interesting? And then think about people in your life, and we have some of those that we know that we love them and they're just beautiful, extraordinary people, but they like being interesting more than they like being interested. And in the last number of years, Todd and I have kind of shifted up this idea of who we hang out with based on their curious nature. And we didn't really realize that, hey, Todd, until we started to talk because we really like we were like, wow, we've had friends through our whole life and traveling and wherever we've lived or stayed, and and the people that we've gotten to know. And we're fine if you're interesting. We love interesting people. But at the end of the day, we also really feel the most soulful connection to people who are genuinely interested. And we're interested. I hope we're a little bit interesting, but we're definitely interested. And I love that Substack is a place where you can become interested in what other people are doing creatively. Todd, do you want to talk about that statement for you? Like, what if becoming more interested is more important than being interesting? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it is. I think it's just a natural part of connecting, and I think you
Mhm.
create linkages with people, and
Yeah.
you ask questions, and then they'll tell you more than you tell them. I just one other quick story that sort of popped into my head, but I was
Done.
in San Diego with my brother-in-law Dave, and we kind of snuck away from the family. We went down to the Midway. So the Midway is an actual um, uh, aircraft carrier that's
Yeah.
decommissioned, and you can take tours. So Dave and I were walking around. We were looking, just having a great time, and at the at the I'm not a nautical guy. The front of the boat where the jets come in towards the land,
Bow
and we were
the boat. Yeah.
okay. So we were standing at that part of the boat, and there was an area to the side that we were looking at, and there was a netting that just kind of hung around the outside there. And Dave said to me, "I wonder what that netting's for." And I said, "Well, I bet you it's because when the planes come in, if they come off course, it gives the guys a place to jump, so they don't get hit by the planes." And there was a military, so what they do is they hire ex-military people to walk around the midway and answer questions. And he said, yes, that's exactly what it's for. He wasn't even in the conversation. He just interesting to him, I guess, that we had noticed that. And we started talking to him, and he started giving us a tour.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you do in the military? He said, well, I was a medic, so I just kind of helped with the medical side of stuff. And he just left at that. So people that are involved in higher end things, they don't talk about themselves unless you ask specific
Yeah.
questions. By the time we left, we found out he was actually a Navy SEAL who was a medic who had actually been in Fallujah in combat. So he didn't offer
Wow.
that. He was just a really nice guy, and he wasn't guarded. He's not going to tell everybody that. He wasn't trying to brag about stuff. But we started asking more questions, and Dave's an engineer, so he's asking engineering questions, and where I'm a historian, so I'm asking history questions. And so he was getting interesting questions, and he was able to share things that he felt comfortable sharing with us. And I think a lot of really interesting people are the quiet ones that sit in the corner that don't say anything. And they've
Absolutely.
written books and they've invented, they've got patents and they've written songs, but they don't necessarily talk about themselves. So I think it's really
Absolutely.
an interesting function and an interesting byproduct that if you talk to the quiet people or the people that are actually offering the information,
Absolutely.
and you get more interesting feedback.
Absolutely. And when someone's truly confident, they don't need to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of creative people like this, they're too busy creating their art to talk about themselves, or they're too busy creating their business or their way of life, whatever that is. They're so focused on that, they don't need to talk about it. My mother used to call it saving the energy for the action. That they're saving the energy for the action. So if you don't ask the questions, you don't get to learn. Like you don't get to know their story. When we were raising kids, and I want to check the chat in just a moment, um, when when our boys, we life schooled our boys. We called it life school. We homeschooled, but we life schooled. And so we called it life school because it wasn't about being in the home, it was about being out in the world. And so everywhere we took them, we would ask questions of people. And I probably immersed myself in it a lot more because I had small children. And when you have kids, you do think about how you're influencing another human being. And so I became even more curious, asking questions. When we would see a house being built, we would walk over and we would ask the guy what he was doing. And so Liam was quite shy. Our oldest was quite shy. And so he would kind of tuck away and never any pressure to connect. But when we would walk away after I was having an interesting conversation with someone, I would walk away and I would say, Liam, did you hear the amazing story that we got to hear because we asked questions? And that was the way we encouraged our kids to be less shy, was simply by reminding them and showing them that the stories that come when you really ask someone some poignant questions, you get to learn and meet someone fascinating, interesting, just like you were saying, Todd. And our youngest Nathaniel, who's on the call today, he was not shy at all when he was young. So he would ask questions and he would inquire, or he would say hello and he would laugh and, joke around with people. And so, but as they got older, everyone goes through that shy thing. But when we're talking to our boys and we watch them in the world now as young men and adults, they ask questions. They want to know people. They're inquisitive by nature. And I think because we're inquisitive and curious ourselves. And so it was amazing to watch that the world would open up to our kids when they would be curious and they would ask questions. Okay, I'm just going to go through the chat quickly because I want to see all your beautiful thoughts. So let's see. Sam joined. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thrilled to have you. Just Greta May. Oh, yes, Greta. Awesome. Interesting versus interested from Melanie. I think I'm caught up now. Genuinely curious, Rick. I'm so glad. Being too interesting can be exhausting. Absolutely. Is that a problem that you face, Greta? Because I find you to be wildly interesting. I hope it's not too exhausting for you. But this is exactly with our community in the Soulful Way. One of my favorite things, I have a lot of conversations behind the scenes. I think that's actually why we've attracted the souls that we've had now into our paid community, kind of that intimate community, is because we've had so many conversations behind the scenes. We're actually getting to know one another. And then we look forward to getting together at the end of the month when we can make it. So I love you, Greta. You're definitely interesting. And then Leah, people tend to be wary of asking too many questions, possibly afraid of offending or appearing as intrusive. I know this has been my experience at least. So that's really fascinating, Leah. I think you're right. There is there is a need to become soulfully aware as you're asking questions. Because I think you're right. You got to read the vibe. You got to read the room. And sometimes people are quite private. And I do find as a communications person, because that's my background, it's also been my thing since I was a child and I got lines for talking too much in class, which Leah, as a teacher, you would probably appreciate. And luckily I could turn that into a career. But as a communications person, I tend to kind of adapt how I communicate and how I ask based on the vibe. Like if I see that a person is quite quiet or closed off or kind of you can read the room, I tend to ask it gently. Or I'd say, if you don't mind me asking. So I think you're so right. It's how you approach it. Do you have anything to say on that, Todd? Like as a college, instructor and stuff about the idea that you have to be careful about how you ask questions because not everybody, they maybe feel like that's intrusive. Did you find that kind of as you were dealing with new students or new people?
I think there's a natural warning sign in your head when it starts to get too personal. You read their body language and their face, and they don't want to
Yeah.
talk about that. But oftentimes they're sitting there, and I found, especially because I taught college for about 5 years in the business program at a college in Northern Ontario,
Yeah.
and you needed to. Not every teacher does this, but it's the Socratic method. And roughly speaking, is
Yeah.
you're basically asking questions to prompt them to get them to where you want them to go. So you ask them, when was the War of 1812? And they say, well, it's 1752, wasn't it? I say, well, think about this. Think about the name of the title. What do you do? Readjust your question. So you get them back to where they're thinking more critically. And I think that from a there's a difference between meeting someone and going on a first date. I mean, the first date is a critical time if you're interested in the other person, and if you're doing it properly, you're asking questions of the other person. If you're a guy and you're not getting second dates, you realize it's because you're not asking questions of the other of the whoever you're dating. But I
Yeah.
think there's different levels of how you read the facial expressions and how they're actually
Yeah.
their body language. So you want to put all the tools together in your toolbox and use them all at the same time. So
Absolutely. And I will tell you that there were some guys that I dated. We call it BT before Todd because we've been together like 22 years. So the BT guys, they didn't ask questions. They just love to talk about themselves. So by the time the night was done, was like, well, I don't need to go on another date with you because I already know everything about you. So yes, I think that finding that balance is just you're so right though, Todd.
yeah,
Robe said, I tend to be so curious about everything that I don't tend to think about if I'm interesting. Curious. I love that. It's so true. Like when you ask, I have a friend Arthur. We meet every Friday, and he's longest standing dean in Canada of a university. He's a really fascinating guy. He's a prof now. He's on sabbatical, and we have these talks. We kind of were distanced for a number of years, but he was a prof way back in my first year of university. He was a young prof. We became really good friends, and then we just distanced, and I've married and kids and all that, and we've just kind of come back together. And we were talking about the subject of curiosity. And I would say that I think his whole thing, his whole life, he's never been married, doesn't have children. He's a quintessential prof that just loves to, he's a psych prof, he has a PhD, and he just loves to think about things. But he is like beyond curious. That's been his thing. He asks questions of people where they are revealing things to him that I don't think some people, friends of mine that I knew, they would be revealing things to him that I never thought they talked to with anybody else. And so that curiosity is just, it's voracious. It's a beautiful thing to be so focused on being interested that the interesting just comes naturally, right? As people get to know you.
And I think there's levels too of conversations too, because I can't remember the exact quote, but they talk about the fact that uh, people that talk about people, that's kind of a mode you get into when you've got really nothing interesting to say. So I said
Yeah.
I talked to so and so, and they said this, and then there's this conversation about a gossipy
Yes.
kind of things going on, and the next level is you're talking about things that are happening. So you talk about maybe
Yeah.
politics. But then the highest levels you talk about ideas. So you talk about collectivism versus individualism, and all of a sudden you're getting different. You're trying to bring the level of
Yes.
the conversation up a little bit. And with some people you can only go so high, but that's always the goal, is to get it up to that level where you're talking about ideas. So
Yeah. Absolutely. One of the reasons we started this, we have beautiful friends in our lives and we love them for all for different reasons. Some people you're there for, some people are there for you. We have beautiful friendships that we built out of homeschooling, that we built out of the music scene. We have beautiful friendships. But one of the reasons we started the Soulful Way is that we wanted to meet more of our people. And I'd say that at the crux of it, it's because we wanted to meet more people who are curious, that are interesting. And Robes, you're an interesting guy. I love connecting with you. You and I have been friends on Substack for, oh, I think since the day I started here, like over a year ago, a year and a half ago, like year and a couple of months. And Leah said, so I guess you're both interested as well as interesting. Robes. Yes, yes, he is. I guess I have a lot of questions usually. LOL. Katrina said hi to Nathaniel. That's sweet. Katrina is in our town. I'm actually going to do an in-person storytelling. Todd and I are going to do an in-person storytelling and publishing workshop right here in our little area of White Rock, South Surrey. And so Katrina, I met through that little inquiry, and she's going to be there. I wish I could fly all of you here for that. If you're ever interested in doing a storytelling and publishing little workshop, then we can definitely talk about that. Melanie C said, always wonderful to hear you and others life school your children. I'm amazed at the wonderful parents that are with their children and others in their life. That's beautiful. Get going, right, Katrina. I love it. I love how you guys chat back and forth. It's amazing. Oh my gosh, I don't. This is like I love this. I want to make sure I don't miss anyone's. Uh, Interesting how you put it, Jenny. It gives a whole new perspective to asking questions. Oh, I love that. Thank you, honey. Appreciate that feedback. If you ask a question from a place, Jocelyn, of love, it shows you're truly interested, not just being nosy. Absolutely. I agree with that. People feel that vibe. This is the soulful way, right? We tap into that wild wisdom within ourselves. We become still. We listen to that voice within, and then we know where to go with it. I really do think that's the piece that's so important. And that's why I maybe keep popping in that word genuinely curious, because there are people that just ask questions to hear themselves talk. We've all known people like that. They just ask questions. They're kind of trying to make conversation. There's a different vibe completely to that. We can feel when people are really listening to us. And again, not just asking the question, but actually listening, not just waiting for the next thing they get to say. And we definitely feel that energy. And so this is what this is all about, is about looking at our values, looking at something like curiosity and saying, am I being curious enough? Am I being genuine in my curiosity? Am I being respectful of another person? Am I honoring myself in that process of curiosity? Am I asking myself some new questions? So, this is just really cool that we dive into these conversations. How else does curiosity work in your family, in the kitchen or after school during homeschool? That's cool. What does it look like and sound like? Look at you, Mr. Curious Rick. So we that's a really good question. Todd, why don't you it just pops into mind. Your dad used to do 3 questions. Can you tell that story
Yeah.
about your dad?
When he was trying to put me to bed when I was little, he wouldn't read a story, but he would just say, "Do you have any questions about anything?" So it would be like, "Why are the stars in the sky?" And why is the sky blue in the daytime and dark blue at night? And so these questions, and he said it kind of freaked him out later on because the questions got more complicated. He couldn't answer them, but he would always try to have a conversation and answer questions that I, as a little 5-year-old, was trying to understand about the world.
Yeah. And your dad
So
traveled a lot in sales, hey honey? So it was
yeah,
his way of yeah, deeply
he
connecting
was
with
he
you.
was he, it was the line about the sell ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah.
Um, he 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 was a guy that could talk to anybody, and he really had a conversational way of doing
Oh,
that. He was really quite a charming guy.
amazing man. Amazing. We miss him every day.
The
And
biggest collection of with the biggest collection of dad jokes you would ever
that's
encounter.
although you're no, you're a close second, sweet pea. I love all your dad jokes. And I love Nathaniel's face whenever you tell them. He goes, "Oh, dad, I love you. Love you, dad." Every time you
It's
may say a good joke. That's
it's a
cute.
it's a natural extension when you're 20 and you're just hanging around with the guys. Your jokes are a little bit off color, but as you
Yeah.
get kids, you need to change your sense of humor. So it becomes easier in society just to sort of go with the dad joke concept as
And
well.
now they tell off-color jokes way more than we do.
Yeah. Well,
With rightly so. Yeah.
Shakespeare was the
And
king of puns, so
yeah, absolutely. And then I remember when your dad and he came, your dad and your stepmom came to visit. And I remember I was asking a whole bunch of questions, and he turned to me and said, "What's with you and all the questions?" And I was like, "I just want to know you, Ray. I want to know you." So I think I challenged him. I took that question thing up a notch. I'm just going to read. So, what does it sound? And you know what? So, that actually, to answer your question, Rick, that really spun off into our life schooling. We took all the best of what our parents did for us, that being one example, where we implemented that. So Todd would do that for the boys when he would tuck them in sometimes. But we also created a dinner table conversation where there were 3 questions like, what was your yes moment today? What did you learn? What are you grateful for? We had, all the years of homeschooling, we would have those times of sitting around the dinner table asking questions. And with our marriage, I love that because we have learned another big part of this is the assumption versus curiosity element in long term relationships, particularly marriage. And we have found a couple of those coming up right now. And I swear, we were just saying before the call started, I swear this is why we do this. Like, we think it's for you. Actually think it's for us. And we hope, you glean something interesting from this, as you reflect on your own life. But we had this incident yesterday. We went to the beach and we were all packed up, and Todd had made this beautiful, wonderful carafe of coffee. And so we were going to the beach to hang out for a couple of hours. And as we got out of the car, Todd said, "So you're going to grab the coffee?" And we had 2 coffee cups that we were bringing. And I said, "Oh, yes." I said, "I'll bring one of them because I don't want to carry 2 coffee cups," because I was dropping the car a little further away and coming back. And so we get to the camp spot and there's no coffee urn. And I like walked 20 minutes up to drop the car off and 20 minutes back. And I come back to the camping space and I just sit down. I'm ready to have a coffee. And I look at Todd and I'm like, "So where's the coffee urn?" And he goes, "Well, didn't you grab it?" And I said, "Well, I grabbed the coffee cups." And he's like, "No, no, I meant the coffee, like the thermos of coffee." And right there we were like, we need to get a lot more curious in our marriage. Because we definitely I should have asked, like, "What coffee are you talking about?" And he should have said, "What do you mean about the cups?" But we talked about it, and just realized that we do assume a lot about each other.
yeah, you fall into patterns too because you hear the
Yeah.
same story. So it's like tell a story about the cat and the firecracker and the Rubik's cube, and you know exactly what that is, but so we think we understand each other at a level that's above everybody else. Um, like
Yeah.
on what was that show, the How I Met Your Mother, that the two couple that telepathically talk to each other.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
But
yeah.
that doesn't really work in real life as much as we think it does.
Exactly. And I think too, good point. We're always evolving. So we're always evolving, and we don't want to stunt one another's evolutionary growth by assuming versus being curious, because the curiosity allows us in relationship to dig deeper, to consider more, to consider better, to consider in a different way. And so, great questions, Rick. Okay, I'm going to scoot on. So, would love a writing workshop. Okay, cool. We'll talk about that, Leah. Eventually, though, we're coming to you for a soulful retreat. I did one in Guatemala this last year. We're coming for a soulful retreat in Greece, and we're doing a soulful retreat in New Mexico, where Greta lives. So I'm planting seeds right now about that. So, Katrina, curious to be here now. The energy and openness is amazing. Glad to be here this morning. I'm so glad you're here, sweethearts. Dad's rock, absolutely. Dad humor. Out of curiosity, if you don't mind, do you talk much about your work or coach one another? Um, I've been a coach for a number of years for entrepreneurs, and we do coaching together, don't we, Todd?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
We
we do
talk all the
coaching
time.
together. What's that?
We talk all the time. We have a very similar alignment in how we approach business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do. And we've started something called the Golden Hills Project. And why don't you talk about the concert really quickly, honey, just about where that concept came from?
Okay, so went to see there's a Canadian singer called Ron Sexsmith, and if you've not heard of him, you should actually. I was reading a story. The reason he came to notoriety was that back in the '80s, they were interviewing Elvis Costello about '85 or '86, and in some big magazine in Europe, and
Yeah.
he had the picture on the cover, and he was holding Ron Sexsmith's album, holding it because he felt so strongly about how good Ron Sexsmith is. And Ron Sexsmith said that was a turning point in his career because all of a sudden he
Yes.
got this attention and became more nationally like Paul McCartney's a big fan. But this guy that lives in I think he lives in Stratford, Ontario, and he's really a soulful writer, really interesting guy. So
Mhm.
anyway, we go to the concert and it was
That was a
actually
beautiful surprise you took
yeah,
me for.
yeah, it was actually Nick Lowe, who is one of the
Yeah.
big guys in the UK of the '80s, and just beautiful singer-songwriter. He wrote "Cruel to Be Kind" would be the song you would recognize. Anyway,
Mhm.
he's come, he plays, and then Ron Sexsmith opens before, and he plays the song called "Golden Hills," and there's gold in them hills, and he talks
Yeah.
about how much there is beautiful in the world, and it's just this beautiful, quiet, and he's a beautiful singer, kind of a
Yeah.
high Roy Orbison, not kind of that, but that beautiful, clear sounding voice.
Yeah.
And we just started talking about how we need to look forward to there's gold in the hills, even though it's not what it is right now. It's not what it's going to be. So,
Yeah, you can't
so
really see it yet, but so that's where it came from. So, Rick, to answer your question, yes, we're constantly evolving with one another, and we're going to write a book together. We started this publishing company. It's a soulful publishing company because I worked in PR and marketing, and I worked in San Diego, so I had clients in Los Angeles and New York, and I was a ghostwriter for the New York Times, Wall Street Journal for different clients, and so I understand that promotional piece, but we really at this stage of life, and I think always, but even deeper now, this soulful element of drawing your story out of you, that everyone has a story to tell. So we started that company because we really wanted to help people in the self-publishing gig to be able to do this in an extraordinary way that blends the coaching of life that weaves into the story. And so Todd and I am building that, and then now, and the Golden Hills Project is about things that we do, rituals and practices that we do that keep us centered within ourselves individually and collectively. So we're doing that dance of intimacy and independence as well as we can, and we're always being curious and evolving in that, and then evolving in the business that we're providing. So we've always worked together in one capacity or another. And so remaining curious about what this next stage is. And even this, I'll be totally honest. We've been building this for 4 months now, and we've seen depth, which is beautiful. And that's the most important bit. We've seen depth, but we haven't seen a burst of growth. even though we know these conversations are powerful and important. And then I have to say, just this week, we were saying, do we pull back a bit? How do we shift this up? Is this really reaching people? How do we reach people? Is this of value? And we're constantly asking that question. And then, honest to God, all you soulful people show up today. And this is where life gets curious. And I'm thinking, this is what we dreamed of building. Like on it, even at the depth of relationship and both all of you engaging with one another and asking questions and sharing. And this is where I live. I want to do this forever. And I want to do it in different capacities. I want to do it in Greece. We want to do it in, New Mexico, wherever. We want to build these relationships. So we're constantly asking questions of one another. Hey, Todd, and trying to just encourage one another. And where are we going next? And we have lived, one day we'll probably share our story to inspire others, but there have been ebbs and flows, as with anyone that commits more to the creative journey than the typical pathway. So the road less traveled, oh, honey, we've been living it since the second we met, and it takes a lot of curiosity. I want to read other people's comments. Must share a dad moment by Katrina. As a child, my dad would scribble random scribble, then ask me to turn it all sides, then draw the scribble what I saw. Love the doodle game. What a great game. That's an amazing game. And we do one with our kids differently. We do collective Maki pictures where one person will draw and then you pass it and the other person draws and you never know what it's going to end up as. So those curious games that keep us young and fun, that's beautiful. Thank you, Rick. You're so sweet. Lovely to have you. Do you ever ask questions before? Do you ever ask questions before you're in report? I need you to just give me maybe a bit more details. Does curiosity sound like you want to develop report? I'm not sure what that means, but maybe send me a note afterward because I'd love to know. So I want to turn it to you guys a little bit because we're getting on to the hour and I want to make sure I'm honoring everybody's time. If folks are still kind of engaging, I would love it if you popped into the chat. When has curiosity helped you see someone differently? So when has this, and then Todd and I are going to share just a couple of extra stories, just because one today was mind blowing and we have to share it. But if at a time when curiosity has changed a relationship, because I know for us with our kids, so if you can pop your answers into the chat, that would be amazing. So Todd, do you want to start or you want me to? It's up to you, darling.
Well, you start. Good. And I just saw Rick said rapport, not
Oh,
report. So that's
rapport,
a typo. Yes.
not report. Okay, cool. Okay. Does curiosity sound like when you want to develop rapport? Oh, you know what? I think that just comes soulfully. I think the question, so I'll give you an example because I know Todd and I had no idea. We had a very curious morning. We had no idea how it would play out. So we were walking the pier, and a few days ago, being the curious people that we are in our neighborhood, there was a quite a young man sitting in a comfy camp chair, in a very official city-looking outfit, or a CN, kind of railway outfit. I think what's the name of the CN railway? I can never remember this because CN is
B-
different.
BNSF,
BNSF.
Burlington Northern San Francisco, I think it stands for.
Sorry, say that again.
Burlington Northern San Francisco. It's the rail. It's the rail line that goes from Vancouver all the way down to San Diego.
Right. So our rail system, because I'm used to CN Rail out in Ontario, but this railway station. So this gentleman is sitting in a camp chair. It looks like he's a camper, and he's hanging out right by the tracks. And so a few days ago, we asked him, and they're repairing the tracks. The rail company is repairing the tracks because it's getting a bit unsafe. The asphalt is kind of caved in. So we start chatting with this man, and there's an event going on Friday, for our elected officials here in White Rock. And so I was just making sure and asking, are you guys going to be around? Because there's a major event on Friday. So if you can make sure not to be doing it on that day, I know that the council members that are doing some announcements would really appreciate that. So we started this lovely conversation. 3 days later, we're at the pier again in the morning and we see Rob and he's sitting there. And as we leave, as has been Todd and I for a number of years, particularly when we had little boys, we would always kind of find people to do little sweet things for. We called it the Mad Hero Project for 15 years. And so we find little sweet things to do. And as we're heading up the stairs, Todd looks at me and he goes, we should really go and get Rob a coffee. Like maybe we get a coffee sometime. And I said, why don't we just do it right now? We have time before our talk and we like to kind of get into that meditative groove. And so we drive to the coffee shop, we wait in line at our favorite, one of our favorite little coffee shops. I meet a couple in there with their two boys that are the same age difference as Liam and Nathaniel. I have a lovely chat with them. They're on vacation. And I say, just grasp every moment of this. I miss these times so much when our boys were small. We have this lovely exchange. We go back and Todd kind of just pulls over and I pop out of the car and I go down and I pass this lady who smiles at me and she's sitting on the bench and I pass her and I smile and I go down to deliver the coffee to Rob. And I turn to Rob and I go, Rob, you know what? You've been camped out all night. I said, we just thought you could use a coffee. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, I'm so sorry, but I'm not a coffee drinker. And he goes, I really appreciate it. You made my day, but I don't drink coffee. And I said, oh, honey, don't worry. That's all good. We just wanted to say that we appreciate you. And so as I'm walking up the stairs with the coffee in my hand, I think that's curious. And instantly, when I'm listening to that soulful place, I heard that little whisper inside said, the coffee was never for him. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's for somebody else. And as I walk around the corner, I see this beautiful woman sitting on the bench. And I said, is there any chance that you drink coffee? And she said, oh, I do. And I got to say it without crying, but it started the most beautiful conversation with this woman who just came from chemotherapy. She had a beautiful headdress on, and she said, I just came from chemo. I love coffee. And she said, is there sugar? And I said, there is. There's sugar and there's cream. And I said, I'm on the side so that you can put it in yourself. And we had a 15-minute conversation. And she said, I'm 56 and I'm in stage 4 cancer. And she said, it's very rare. And she said, it just knocks you down. And she said, I felt so sad today after chemotherapy. And she said, I just had to come and sit by the ocean because I know how healing this is. And she said, and I can't believe this. And I said, would you mind if I gave you a hug? And so she said, I'd love that. And I gave her a big, beautiful hug. And I said, I'm going to hold you in my prayers. And I got to know her name and connect and everything. And then she started to cry and she just said, I'm so happy. And I'm just sitting here with my coffee. And I said, there's love in every sip. That's the curiosity that if we did not just pause, and we have this presentation this morning and we have to choose not to feel pressure, to trust the flow, to listen to where the conversations can come from and to be curious. And if this serves you as you head into your week and your day, then I'm so grateful. And it was very serendipitous that you showed up in this moment. And I see Rick saying thank you. It's just we all have those stories when we get curious and we care about people and we connect and we take a moment and we're not afraid of feeling like we're on the treadmill and we just pause and we just get curious and we ask questions and we genuinely connect with one another. There's just such miracles. So she changed my day and she changed this conversation and she is living vibrantly no matter what she's going through and what's happening right here in this room. And that's all we can ever hope to do for one another. Todd, do you have others to share, sweetheart, and about
No, I think
curiosity or what's unfolded this week or
there's so many.
anything
I
you
just
want
got
to share?
lost in your last story. I just got lost in your last story. So I've got nothing queued up right now.
That's okay.
I'm curious as to
Anyone
why
else?
that
So
happened.
what's that, sweetie?
I'm curious as to why that happened.
You know what? Yes. So does anyone else have anything to share? That's the magic. Thanks so much, Jennifer and Todd. Nice to think about the pause. God bless. So we'll wrap it up then, beautiful souls. Thank you for just being so engaged and engaging. Thank you for being interested and fabulously interesting. We're so grateful to be in community with all of you. I feel overwhelmed with joy. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful stories. I look forward to hearing more of yours. So just some updates. So this week, the Soulful Collective special edition of the newsletter comes out. And we feature different authors on curiosity. So there's some really cool authors coming. We are always looking for beautiful writers and people that write notes of soul to be able to contribute month to month for our themes. So if you want to be featured, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'm just trusting this kind of, I reach out to folks and I ask them, but I would love it that we had a roster of writers that just wanted to contribute and just be featured in the Soulful Collective. So please reach out. Next week is Father's Day weekend. And so we're actually going to do a recording of our curiosity panel. And instead of going live next Sunday, we're actually just going to record it and we're going to post it to everyone so that you don't need to feel you have to show up on the Sunday live, because we just want you, if you are a father, if you have a father, if you want to celebrate the men who are fathers to beautiful ideas or fur babies or great kids, just take time and celebrate a man in your life, a father in your life. So we won't see you next Sunday, but please, please mark it on your calendar for the last Saturday of the month. We would love to have you in the workshop. If it's your first time, it's free. And to those that are paid members, which is like 1888 Canadian a month, it's it's just a token, but it's just that commitment, that investment in what we're doing here. And then we'd love to see you. So if it's your first time, please know we'd love you to just come check it out for free. And anything else you want to say to sign off, my darling?
Um, Curiosity has always been something that I've been really wildly interested in, and it's driven so much of how I've gotten to where I am. And if I wasn't curious, I never would have met Jenny playing beach volleyball. Very true
That's
shows. Yeah.
And me too. Me too. Curiosity led us to one another and it led us to all of you. Thank you for listening to your souls today, showing up with us for a time. Lots of love to all of you. Stay curious. I think that's Robes. He does that line when he signs off. Stay curious. I love that and love to all of you. We'll look forward to seeing you in the weeks ahead. And hopefully, we'll see you together in community the last Saturday of this month. And I'll be posting lots of information about that. And it's always in the Soulful Way newsletter if you're a free subscriber. Lots of love, everybody. Mwah. We'll see you next time. Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.
Wishing you a lovely Sunday. Thank you, Leah. I'm so glad you could be here. Absolutely thrilled you could be with us, Leah. Congratulations on wrapping up your week. Sue Ann, I'm thrilled to have you here. I love it when you pop in. Greta, I love you. Good luck with all the organizing of your new space. I'm very excited to see how that all unfolds folds for you. Lots of love, everybody. And if you're watching this recording, thanks for joining us too. Lots of love, everyone. Take care. Have a beautiful Sunday. Bye.
Bye.